Welcome back to another episode of Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate these hypersexualized times. And hypersexualized times, we are going to get into some stuff today. I just finished recording with Uncle Dave and Jonasz, and we're talking about sextortion. Okay, sextortion is something you may have heard of, and it is a massive problem, actually. It's massive because it's spreading like crazy, but it's also massive because when it happens to somebody, it can alter the course of their life. And in some cases, it's the most trajectory you could go, which is suicide, which is, just completely giving up on life and your dreams. I just want to caution you, okay? We really get into it in this episode. It's a longer episode because there's a lot to unpack. We get into the history of Jonasz, understanding that he's been working on his sexual integrity for a long time. He's an amazing guy. He has a wonderful family. So this idea that, so long as we just keep on praying and keep on acting like nice people, then bad things won't happen to us is just so stupid. Please don't do that. Don't fall into this trap. Hyperconnectivity is the answer to hypersexualization, right? We need to stay connected to each other. And also, there's a theme here of grace, how important grace is. If you are a parent, or if you're a brother, sister, if you're a mentor, if you want to help humanity, please lead with grace, not with judgment, not with intellectualism, but grace. This is the answer of a starting point. It's not everything, but it's the most essential starting point you could offer somebody else who's in a desperate state. So I want to just lay out some facts here. So the FBI, you heard of them, some organization in America, they've noted that perpetrators for sextortion often masquerade as peers, and they use fake profiles, or they lure people in through, say, like a girl who is saying nice things to a boy, and they say, wow, you're really cute, and they get that boy to send pictures or videos of themselves naked, and this is how they entrap them, right? And oftentimes these, as Jonasz gets into, these are organized units, crime units of people who have a whole system, okay? And once they have these pictures, these organizations or these videos, they use this as a tool to suffocate that person with fear tactics by saying, we will give all these pictures to everybody you know, your business contacts, your family friends, unless you give us money. And of course, it never ends there. It's subsequent payments. They just have you exactly where they want you. And so another fact is that the severity of sextortion can escalate very quickly, often leading victims down a path of psychological turmoil. And often this can feel like there's no hope. My life is over. So suicide is often on the table, which also Jonasz gets into. From October 21st to March 23rd, the FBI reported that sextortion had claimed at least 12,600 victims in America, mostly boys, and it was linked to at least 20 suicides. But here's what gets crazy is that in 2023, it went from 12,600 victims to 26,718 victims. So this is exponential at this point, right? As more people are exposed to the online world and kids, without rules, without conversations, without boundaries, they get themselves into trouble. And so US is a hotbed for this, and US citizens are often exploited more. It says like 51%, but there's more and more people from around the world who are getting tangled in this web. So look, this is a long introduction. It's a long episode, but I think it's one of the most important ones we can do to understand how to combat sextortion in general, but also more broadly, how do we help to be smart people online and support people who might be ignorant, who might find themselves entrapped in some sort of tangled web? This is what we unpack in this episode. Please listen to it in full with an open heart so that we can help each other. Because if we don't talk about these things, you know what happens is we all suffer because more people make the same mistakes. When we talk about these things and have courageous people like Jonasz who talk about difficult things in public after they've processed them, after they've worked on them, after they've claimed victory. Now we can all level up as a community and say, hey, this is not good enough. We can do better. We can take care of each other better. So please listen to this podcast in its entirety. Share it with people you love, okay? Welcome back, everybody. So, as mentioned, we have Jonasz here, but we also have Uncle Dave here, who's a solid force of good in many people's lives, actually. And I know he's been a sense of support for Jonasz over these years, so he's going to support him in this podcast as well. So welcome, Jonasz. Welcome, Uncle Dave.
Hello, Andrew. Good to see you.
Thank you.
So Jonasz, when did you first hear about High Noon? I wanna understand first, kind of like your relationship with High Noon, as a background. Like, what was your first exposure? What did you first think of us? This kind of thing.
Okay. First of all, hello everybody. Really good to be on the podcast. A big fan. I listen to everything, but it's good to be on it as well. Yeah, in terms of High Noon, I think the first time I saw you and all the High Noon was in Korea in 2017 during the GTGY, and I think it was the one of the bigger milestones for High Noon at the time. I was mainly with the Songhua group, with the high school students, and Sami was mainly caring about us later on as well. We did have some lectures with you, Andrew. Remember you being in a really nice suit, looking like a pro. But yeah,
don't get used to it.
I think now you switched a little bit of your clothing. But no, it was really good time. 2017. Throughout the years, I've been not only exposed to High Noon, but also quite involved. Yep.
Yeah. And so since then, you've been working on your sexual integrity, yeah? When did you really get started working on yourself?
The journey started quite a bit earlier. Maybe first, I'll just walk you through my very first relationship with PMO, how it looked like for me.
Sure.
So I remember the date very clearly when I got exposed to porn and masturbation, and it was in 2013, 5th of January. I remember the date and the circumstances pretty well. I was 13 years old at the time, currently 24. And it was just straight after a very nice winter international workshop, which we have in the place where I live. I was pretty much, I grew up in a training center, church training center, and I'm coming from very nice, good, stable family. But I think I got exposed to PMO just after the workshop. I started my Facebook account for the first time as well. And I think I saw some advertisement, which was quite edgy. And from then, I remember being really, I would say, missing the workshop, the energy of the workshop. And I was just using the computer more than ever throughout the few days after that. This is how it started. I remember feeling very confused. And I remember straight after the first time I saw anything what was not exactly any hardcore porn. It was mainly some images of naked people. But I remember, I was pretty shocked, and I went straight back to the living room. It was in my at my room, so I was just putting the computer away, and I would try to connect with the family, seeing what's going on there. but yeah, this is how it started throughout the years.
Mm.
I think the first year, even though I was exposed to porn and masturbation, I wasn't really struggling that much. I think throughout that year, I maybe came back to porn once or twice, and after that, I think the next year, following year, yeah, I did have established a habit with masturbation.
Mm.
That year as well, I think my parents they discovered that but I was watching porn and I was having some issues with that. And I remember very clearly that they were very concerned. I could sneak to the living room at night and I could hear them talking about it with a great
Mm.
concern. But I felt very, I would say, very scared or quite ashamed as well. And to give you a little bit of a background information, my parents at the time, they were national leaders of Poland. By the way, I'm Polish. I'm half Polish, half Korean BC, currently living in the States. But yeah, I could feel very strong pressure. And in a way, even though my parents were really amazing when I was growing up, and I love my parents with all my heart, but at the same time, yeah, they were at least guiding me more through, I would say, teaching or giving a lot of information about sexuality, but I couldn't really feel so close to them, so I could open up easily. Yeah,
So could I just unpack that a little bit? So your parents were talking to you about sex. Were they talking to you about like the ideal, from a biblical or principled perspective of what you should be like, and you didn't know how to tell them about your reality? Was that what was the dynamic? Because it seems like they were trying, which is better than most parents,
yeah,
but
yeah,
what was not working in this dynamic?
well, they were really good at exposing the ideal and talking about things referring to parents' teachings about sexuality, and often their relationship was I would say quite conditional based on the fact that they were in this position to also give an example as a family, and quite often we were talking about sex or sexuality from the perspective of what what should be done or what kind of example two parents are bringing and giving us. But quite often, when we were reading the Hundekwe and there was some parts about sexuality, we were just reading it, not really discussing the topic. I
Sure.
could see that they were really trying, but there are parents for the first time as well. So, like everybody, they were trying to learn how to approach it, but it wasn't really filling up the need I had at the time, especially that I was exposed to PMO at the time already.
So it was kind of like talking about sex, but it was more impersonal. Like it wasn't really addressing where you were at and the questions you really had. And so there's a gap of information maybe between what you were curious about and what you were hearing.
More or less, I felt definitely quite ashamed by myself because I was hiding something, and my parents, they were trying to unpack. They were trying to, I think, once or twice approach it because I think once they really sensed that I might have some issue with this, so they actually just took me on the side. And I'm not sure if it's only me, but whenever we had a big talk with parents, we either went for a nice walk to the forest to grab some ice cream.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. We went for some ice creams, and they were like, "Jonasz, do you have maybe any problems with porn? Have you seen it?" And I said, "No." I remember feeling very, very, very difficult about it. Couldn't really share it openly because I felt I felt like I'll be really not a good son to even say it. Yeah.
Hmm. I see. This is a very interesting phenomenon, right, Uncle Dave? Because Milhan used to talk about this, and we've heard it so many times that somehow there is some very strong correlation between ice cream and talking to your kids about sex. It's very bizarre.
Mm.
um, well, that's really interesting, and I'm really, as you're telling me this, I'm thinking about it from a parent's perspective that in many ways your parents were doing so many of the right things. They were proactively trying to find out if you're struggling with porn, so they asked you. They even shelled out some cash for some ice cream. They weren't blocking true parents' words about sex, so they were kind of exposing you to these ideas. But what I'm trying to understand a little bit more, because part of what we're going to get into in terms of your story with sextortion comes at the behest of isolation, right?
Mm.
Comes as a byproduct of isolation. So somehow you had parents who are actively trying to understand you in a way that they knew how, right? Like you said, they were learning. And you're an older sibling, so you're one of the more, I'm sure they got better with time. That's what ideally parents do. But what was it that was missing out of this equation? You were a good kid. You weren't like trying to rebel or trying to be angry at your parents. You're just a kid who's struggling. Your parents are trying to understand. So where was the disconnect? Why weren't you able to tell them, or why weren't they able to get that information out of you that you were struggling? And again, this is for not for commenting on them. It's more of like a life lesson for those parents who do feel like they're trying because they love their kids. Every parent loves their kids, but like what maybe could have happened differently so that you would have been more likely to share?
Right. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in the end, like anyone who's lucky enough to have parents or anybody in the parental position, we are to a certain degree shaped, or we are we do have a big influence from this relationship, especially with parental relationship. And I'm really grateful for the experiences I had with my parents. But at the time, yeah, I'm coming from the big family as well. I do have 5 siblings. I'm the third one, and yeah, I definitely experienced some time where my parents were not so present in my life because they were
Mm,
busy, and yeah, they were obviously not only doing mission at the time. They were really focused on the mission. So quite often they were not really at the house. They were traveling a lot and focusing on helping other families as well. They did have business, had to provide for the family, but
yeah.
also did lots of other things. So I think in the end there was lots of scarcity because I wasn't able to express certain things when I was younger.
Mm,
Quite often I did have many conflicted or quite many not easy ways of expressing myself, and actually I was a little bit of a troublemaker when I was younger. Instead of expressing fully and clearly how am I feeling, what kind of emotions I have, I was rather just making a bunch of noise or making some statement or maybe doing something just to
sure.
express things in this very dysfunctional way. So long story short, I think when I was 15, this is the first time I could have some brothers night, brothers talk, where people could actually share it quite freely in terms of their sexuality or purity. And there were a
Mm,
couple of older brothers who could share it and more openly than normally, because I used to be part of lots of workshops where you had many brothers nights as well, but people were rather usually saying general things. But at that time when I was 15, I could share a little bit more, and it was definitely an opening door for establishing more trust and more courage, actually, to approach
Yeah.
the topic with my parents. Um,
Yeah. So just to stop, it seems like, in terms of your youth, because this shapes you and the events of your life, including this event that we're going to get into, it seems like part of it is that in order for parents to really be able to hear from their kids about things like, are they struggling with porn, they might need a little bit more of a personal foundation first, right? So get to that. And if you haven't spent time with your kids that much, for your kids to fully open up after not spending a lot of time with them, it might be a little bit more challenging, because the kids, like, I'm sure at that time you would have loved on some level to be able to express where you're at and ask for help from your parents, but there was something that was holding you back, and that I think we would call that trust. It's like a foundation of trust. So I just wanted to kind of put a note on that, because that'll be important also for future. And the fact that we're having this podcast is on a foundation of rebuilding more trust with the people in your life. I did want to skip ahead a bit, because I really want to delve into the situation that you found yourself in, because you started out your journey. It's what, 11 years that you've been kind of struggling with porn, masturbation.
More or less, yep.
And then since 2017 and then beyond, I mean, I've seen you very actively working on your sexual integrity in our programs and all this. And I think because we have a lot of people working on themselves, we have a lot of people in Ascend and this kind of stuff. When you see somebody doing well, I think it's a dangerous mistake that I've made, for sure, and maybe other people on our staff, that, oh, they're doing okay. They're solid, they're steady, and maybe we don't check up enough on them. But that's what I know you to be, is like really rock solid and very steady, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I want to understand, you've had really good bouts of sobriety and sexual integrity, but where were you at kind of leading up to this event that took place, that got you in this trouble? Like, where were you at mentally? Where were you at with sexual integrity? How did you kind of, I don't know, how did your situation change from being stable to unstable?
Right. I think we need to tell a little bit more build up to it. I would say
Okay.
there's a little bit more.
Sure.
As I recall, you weren't that stable at the time.
Yeah. But
Yeah, so
overall,
what's going on?
in terms of, even before I was exposed to high noon, I was starting really trying to work on my habit, mainly with masturbation, actually. When I was 15 years old as well, I got exposed to some hardcore porn as well. And I got extremely disgusted by it, extremely. And it prevented me from actually even touching it for a long time. When I was 16, there was this, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but True Mother was giving a special grace for the first time. And as a 16-year-old, I remember taking it very seriously for a 16-year-old. And I was very clearly proclaiming that I don't want to have anything to do with masturbation. And I could go successfully through 2016 with only very few sleep-ups, actually, really working on that already. That year was also quite interesting because I did lots of martial arts when I was younger. And when you do lots of sports and when you really put your body to some strong regime, that also helps with regulating, I would say, your habits and working on yourself. It contributes to your sexual integrity as well, overall integrity. So that was very useful. But then I stopped, going for judo. I stopped the sport. 2017 was pretty tricky. But then Hainan appeared. I went to Chongpyeong for GTGY, and it was also a very successful time when I could completely get off PMO for over 3 months, thanks to Hainan personally. Came back from GTGY, started being quite involved with SDF Europe, also being quite involved with ILSIM programs, started helping younger brothers and sisters. And I remember in 2018, in the beginning of the year, I did have my relapse. And it really sucked because all of those 2 years when I was really investing into my sexual integrity felt like was completely destroyed in a way at the time.
Yeah.
I think for the first time I could freely go to my parents and tell them, this is my situation, this is where I am at. And yeah, I offered it to them. So the level of trust and the level of courage and the importance of sharing this with others was quite big for me at the time already. Yeah. Fast forward to maybe 2020 or 2019, I did have really good experience on my STF year, going through it. Also feeling very connected, feeling very, very stable. But when I came back from it, and there was a COVID time, I struggled a lot actually. It was a very beautiful time. The COVID time for many people is probably not the easiest, and I know many people were really struggling, but for me personally, I really loved it. Spending time with my family in the countryside was a dream actually. Not at the time, working outside or doing some activities with my parents maybe didn't feel so amazing, but now looking back to the time, I really love that. So a little bit of a paradox. I really loved that time. I could spend time with the family, but at the same time, I did have this shadow, which was PMO, and I think every weekend when I felt less connected, less work, less things which occupied me, I was sneaking this habit back. And yeah, 2020 was once again a mixture of really good things, but also of battling the PMO. That year as well, I reached out to one of my good friends from SDF and asked him, hey man, how are you doing in terms of your sexual integrity? Because he and me and a few other brothers, we talked about that during our SDF year. Thanks to Hainan as well. You guys came during the time to Korea or to some other places. We had some workshops, and it was definitely very helpful to see you guys, and we could have lots of practice with sharing and developing the muscles of accountability in a sense. And I called him, and I was very motivated to, confront myself and my situation. And he told me, yeah, actually, I'm part of the group. And actually, I'm helping with facilitating. So he was like, yeah, do you want to join the call? And I think the call was the very next day. I came for the call. I joined the call, and there was Uncle Dave, actually. The other brothers, and it was the last call of the quarter. Well, it was definitely an opening for me to really work on my sexual integrity in a different way. Because previously, I felt like it was basically me alone versus all of this scary monster. I did have some success stories. I had some failures. But at the same time, it wasn't really steady as much as I wanted. So it was a really good experience of joining the group. Fast forward to that, say the following months were pretty precious. I could attend most of the calls. I benefited a lot by being in the group and trying to really confront myself in my situation. But yeah, all the time running, I was very involved with many activities, church-wise, But I think in 2021, I started shifting slightly, and I was changing my environment quite drastically. And it has quite a bit of importance to following, I would say, things which we're going to be talking about. But I think mainly I started being very involved with lots of external activities. I was very much motivated to grow, to develop myself, but not exactly in the best direction, which wasn't necessarily helping me the most. When I think COVID happened, I started doing more photography and filmmaking. I opened my business. Later on throughout the years, I could develop it more. And I have...
You got really good too.
Thank you. But also, I could meet lots of different people. So growing up in the church, being surrounded by lots of BCs, growing up in the church center, actually, you are definitely exposed to lots of goodness. But I think after some time, I really wanted to see different environments as well. So I connected with people from music industry. I connected with lots of people. Lots of my clients were YouTubers and many young people who were quite successful with their stuff, but not necessarily had the best influence on me. I'm joking now, but I was very much thinking of myself as a hustler, and I would really like that hustle culture. I was very ambitious, wanted to basically focus on gathering their resources, and you had a price, because eventually, from the perspective of time, I can see that what I was really trying to do was really solving or maybe feeding my very, very important internal needs I had at the time with external tools. We all have a big appetite for spiritual growth, spiritual food, and for the connection. And when I'm talking about the connection, I'm mainly speaking about the connection with God, Heavenly Parent, with others, and with ourselves. And there was definitely some stuff lacking at the time in my life. And I also started travel quite a lot. I was working with a couple of travel agencies. And when you do quite a lot of work like that, you travel a lot, you have lots of highs, then you have lots of lows as well. And in my case, traveling a lot, experiencing different environments, quite often working in different places, not the best places. I worked in some places like nightclubs. I worked in the photo studios full of different people. I worked on concerts. That definitely impacts you a lot. So when I was working with a couple of travel agencies where people were mainly traveling to some places like Ibiza or Golden Saints for Europeans, those locations are quite familiar for most of the people from the States. I can just call it European Vegas or Miami or whatever else. People have three things in mind, and it's mainly, drink alcohol, take drugs, and have as much sex as possible. And my three goals at the time were exactly the same things: to don't take drugs, don't drink alcohol, and to don't have any affairs, don't have any sexual relationships with anybody.
Yeah.
But long story short, when I was coming back and from those trips and from this travel time, I had lots of editing work to do. And I spent lots of time on my computer, and there were many times long processes of just really focusing on the work where, and this, it's quite specific work. You are quite often closed in an isolated environment, just you and the computer and a bunch of work. And that's not always easy. So maybe I can leave it here, and maybe you can you have some questions to lead it forward.
No, that's quite the buildup. So you're painting a picture that, you're young, in the prime of your life. You're being offered a lot of exciting opportunities in terms of a job that has a lot of street cred, right? To be to make attractive videos online right now is makes you kind of like digital royalty in a sense, right? So that you're attracting a lot of attention, which is the goal of so many people, right? But you're actually getting it. And now you're being exposed to all sorts of new environments that are not in line with your, the type of person that you want to be necessarily, but it's exciting and it's new and it's, at the end of the day, opportunities. So very easy to justify. It's like, this is like a perfect recipe to get yourself into a sticky situation, right? Because you're outside of where you probably might want to be. I don't want to say should be, but where you might want to be in terms of like, a spiritual network. Like you're saying, the type of environment that you would experience in a workshop center is very different from Ibiza, obviously. They both have music. They both have a lot of people shouting. Very different spirit, very different results, right? And so it's exciting, but it's also not on the foundation of anything other than, money, the pursuit of, external things. So, and then now you're also mentioning that a big part of this job is to be by yourself in front of a computer with all sorts of highs and lows coursing through your body and through your mind and through your spirit, right?
Hey guys, it's Benji. It's that time of year, the season of giving, Giving Tuesday, Thanksgiving, Christmas is here, my friends. We are a nonprofit still at High Noon, and we ask if you have some cash to donate to High Noon. No, if you even don't have cash, but you would like to contribute something to High Noon because you've benefited from our content or you want to see us succeed and change more lives, then please become a donor. Please donate what you have. You can become a monthly donor as little as $10 a month. It really does make a huge impact. Collectively, we can change a lot of lives and create radiant blessings. There's no one on earth that's doing what we are doing, and we think that we have something special to offer the world. So if you are in agreement with that, then go to highnoon.org/donate or click somewhere down below this link, highnoon.org/donate, and you can help us out from there. All right. Join the club. See it.
So I think that's a great place to, it's a big buildup to, I really do want to get into the meat of what happened because I don't even know the details at all myself. So, how is it that you could, in a sense, know who you want to be, but also be kind of led down the wrong path little by little, further and further away from where you'd like to be, into a place where you clearly really don't want to be? Like what was taking place? You're in front of so we're caught up in front of the computer a lot, surrounded by people who don't have the same kind of life goals as you or, focus. And then what happens? I'd like to get into some details about like what occurred.
Yeah. Well, it's first of all quite tricky to lead you throughout my life journey in a few minutes, but overall,
did a great job.
Yeah, it can be. It seems very conflicting to have a lifestyle as I do have and diving into an environment like that. And at the time, I was also very much motivated to work on myself, develop my relationship with God, through my parents, and eventually get in the position to get blessed as well. So it seems extremely conflicting actually to do activities like that. At the same time, like you said, Andrew, it was very exciting. I felt like I was really growing in many areas in terms of my social network, or in terms of the things I saw, or in terms of the places I've been to. But at the same time, I need to point it out very clearly. Sometimes we use different tools to focus on feeding our internal needs. And I can see that from the perspective of time. I was trying to try different things, but eventually I missed some crucial growth and crucial work on myself and on my inner connection and connection with God. That's the essence from that situation. When it comes to the situation with the sextortion, the build-up, which I was just telling previously, is quite important, because when you have lots of highs, you need to be really careful how you go to the low position. True Father quite often he was saying that life journey is a little bit like hiking, going to the top of the mountain, just to be able to be really careful when you're going down there and approaching even the bigger peak. And in my case, I think the lows were looking usually quite similar. I'm coming back from some trip or from some contract work I have. I meet lots of people. I do like talking to people. I like people overall. So this is, I would say, my strong point, where I can really work with people and see, how these relationships will lead me in the future. But when it comes to the work when nobody is watching, it's usually quite hard. So obviously, I didn't do only the work with celebrities or like with those YouTubers or going to those parties. Quite often, I was doing also very boring work. For example, I was going to let's say a steakhouse, and I was recording these really, really nice steaks and some really good food, and I had to edit it. And usually I was doing it throughout the night. Nighttime was usually my go-to, because I could focus. I was able to, I thought, go through edit a little bit more smoother and a little bit faster. But actually, in reality, quite often it was very challenging, especially when I was editing some things which could be potentially triggering. Let's say I was going to some party or some event full of people who are dressed maybe not so properly as well. It's very triggering. So I was really not making the best decisions when it comes to what kind of work at the time I was taking on myself. I had many times when I was just very triggered by those. I was part of the High Noon Ascent programs at the time as well. I did have accountability partner, which was extremely precious, especially when I was going to some edgy places. I never drank any alcohol in my life. I never smoked. I never took any drugs. I never had any relationship during that time as well. I felt very, very strong, actually. And thanks to my accountability partner, also I could be very supported. But it wasn't the best environment anyways, and in the end it was very much consuming me as well. So many times when I was actually editing, I was very much having a bunch of slip-ups, quite often relapses as well with PMO, and it felt really terrible actually. When I was working, when I was traveling, I kept myself pretty straight, pretty strong, because I didn't have any other option if I wanted to don't be trapped completely and still keep my 3 words regarding to what to do, what I can do and what things I want to avoid. But those lows were very tricky actually. Maybe going forward with the story, I was having lots of work at that time. I think that week when the crucial week, I did have extremely a lot of work and I felt extremely stressed as well. And I didn't sleep much. I was editing a lot. And I remember just going completely off the track. I did have a strong relapse, and I felt very ashamed about it. I was very much struggling to report it to anybody. And I remember watching lots of YouTube at the time as well, as a form of procrastination. I feel like I wanted to get off this pressure and then the responsibilities I had. And YouTube at the time was my solution to feel in ease, actually. And yeah, I stumbled upon some video, some random YouTuber who was just interviewing people. I think it was a YouTuber who was asking some strangers about some geographical questions, especially Americans, and trying to make them look a little bit dumb for not knowing where Poland is, or maybe UK is, or whatever other country.
That's easy to do.
That's
We're easy target.
Currently being in the States, I need to agree quite strongly. Of the topic, it's quite ironic now, but at the time I was just very curious about that website. It was called Omegle, and it currently is not even going because I think it was banned. But the website was quite simple. You just meet strangers from all around the world, and you have a chance to have a conversation. And quite often when I felt very tired or frustrated from the work or from amount of things I have, I use that as my escape, as my way of feeling better for a moment. And I just talk to many strangers about the flags and about the geographical question, like that guy from YouTube video. Maybe not only about that, but quite often I talked about lives in different places, or I could meet lots of new people, and I felt that this is quite a good way of feeling less stressful.
Sure.
So I think for around 3 weeks I was using this platform. I would say almost every day, actually. And I did have struggles with PMO. I still try to be as sharp as I can be on myself. I was having quite clear goals when it comes to that. I did try to limit the social media as well, usually just making some content for my clients, not necessarily scrolling or doing other things. So I think YouTube and this platform were at the time the biggest escapes for me. Later on, I don't know if you have any questions or you want me to continue with the story.
No, this is good.
Right. When it comes to the following weeks, when I was spending relatively lots of time on this platform, I did have one night when I did my usual. I focused on my work. I could accomplish my goals when it comes to the work. And then I was looking forward to have some chat with some strangers and just talk about some random stuff. And when I went to it, I think one of the first people I talked to was some person from Middle East. And we talked quite a bit. And he said that you need to be quite careful because this platform is becoming extremely sexual. And I could already sense that before. Previously, I could see that. I could see some red flags there. Yet, I think it was there was lots of curiosity for me as well to just see more and not only talk to people, but I feel at the time already I was just also noticing that I can meet, some people like random girls and just talk to them. There was a bunch of red flags. I think, I was quite aware that this is very unproductive activity for me. But at the same time, I could, I feel that the curiosity was pushing me forward in a way. Also at the time, I was not really so active within the church, I would say. I was mainly focusing on this hustle I had. My relationship with my parents was, I would say, stable, although we didn't really establish so much connection to the point that I was sharing everything with them. Long story short, one night I was on that platform and I saw a naked woman on it, a naked girl. And I was very much shocked, surprised, but also very triggered, actually. And she didn't speak anything. She didn't really had any audio coming out of her. I mean, her mic was completely shut off. And she was just writing to me pretty much, some typical things like where I'm from, what do you do, and it was very quick. And she asked me if I would like to masturbate together with her. And at the time, it was 4 a.m. Darkness. I was isolated in my room, not really feeling like I want to continue the work. And it was a very, very low position for me. Needed to really see that the position like that is very dangerous, because I'm exposed to many things, and I'm in the very weak spot. And I said, yeah, sure. And eventually, what happened is that I got myself to the position where I was naked. And the very next thing I see is because I think in the end we switched the platform as well. And once I gave them, I think my private, I'm not sure what kind of platform was it, but probably Snapchat or something like that. I never used Snapchat in my life, but I created it just for this one purpose. Mm-hmm. And once I provided the link to her, I got a phone call from some random people, from two men coming at me extremely aggressively, actually, full of anger and full of very strong voices, and they were shouting, "We got you on camera, you were recorded, and we're gonna be placing you all over the place on the internet and sending all of it to your family, friends, and to the people you're working with." So I got extremely scared, actually, and I put off. I shut down my computer and I shut off. The call. I just canceled everything, and I just sat in my chair, being extremely shocked and confused, and it wasn't an easy situation at the time. I turned on my phone once again, and the very next thing is what I saw was that my Facebook account was hacked, and I couldn't log into it. And because they had my the contact to me, these guys, they were calling me a couple of times and demanded that they told me that they have the contacts, all my contacts, and they showed me the screenshots of my family, the names of my family, the screenshots of the friends, my BC friends, even the conversations and the people with whom I was working. So you can imagine, Andrew, I did have lots of conversations through Messenger with my coworkers or with the people I was doing work for, and I was paralyzed because I wasn't expecting that. So the conversation I had, I think overall, I would say it was just 7 minutes from starting the conversation till having those two guys coming at me. So basically, I remember they called me once again after sending me all of the information and that threats they had on me. And I remember I was desperate, I was crying, and they could really see that they caught a good fish. And they told me I need to send them $4,000 right now, straight away, and they will delete those. If I'm not doing it in 1 hour, I will send all of those files and the video to all of those contacts they showed me. So after that conversation with them, I was pretty desperate, actually. I am very blessed with having a beautiful life. And at the time, I could see all of the goodness I had in my life. But at that time, despite having so many things in my life, I was feeling that it's probably a good time to end it up. I never ever in my life had any, even small thoughts about taking my life. I never got any depression. I never felt so low to consider doing anything like that. But at the time, I kind of felt like there was no option, because all of those people they had, all of the contact lists they had, were very precious people for me. But also I felt so much shame and so much pain which could be caused because of it. So at that moment of desperation, I felt that's one way, but I probably gonna break my parents' hearts, actually, and I will break God's heart as well. So I felt like there would be too much trouble for to go for it. I felt like there would be too much mess, actually. So at least my love and my connection with my parents at the time and with the people I loved were greater than that. But the second thought I had was that I would like to actually escape and maybe go somewhere to Asia, Bali, or even somewhere closer. I thought about going to some parts of Europe and just completely hide myself, because that was, I thought, not a bad idea to escape and completely, start a new life somewhere. I called these people, I messaged them, I think, after that, and I told them I need a little bit more time. And I told them I need 1 day. And they told me 1 day is too much. We give you 6 hours. If you don't send us the money, then we are already sending it to everybody. And also they, I think, published that video of me being naked, getting naked, on some pornographic website as well. And they provided me the link to it. Anyways, I closed my phone. I turned it off. And I prayed desperately. I really prayed desperately at the time. And the prayer was very simple. I told God, I'm very sorry. and it really sucks, but I'm in this situation. Please help me. And I was really trying to see the perspective through many different lenses, but in the end, what I decided to do was to communicate with, at the time, my accountability partner, my facilitator, Hainu facilitator, which was Dave, and message him, Uncle Dave, can we talk? Can I give you a call? And I think Uncle Dave, a few minutes later on, after that, he responded, yeah, sure, let's have a call. So I think it was 5 a.m. In Europe, and whatever it was here in Westport, but we did have a call, and I told Uncle Dave all the story, and he told me, yeah, thank you for sharing, thank you for opening up, and don't send the money. There will be other solutions to it. And he really embraced me. He really embraced me, actually. Even though I was stressed, I was shaking like crazy, actually. You can imagine. First few minutes, I was paralyzed after the calls with these people. Then I felt like barely could do anything. But in the end, when he told me God really loves you and he really wants you to get better with the situation, I really felt relieved. I felt supported. I felt more encouraged to work on the situation. And I told Uncle Dave that I want to talk about it with my parents as fast as possible as well. So when my parents woke up, just a few hours later, I asked my dad and my mom if we can go for a walk. Usually we go either for a walk to the forest or for the ice creams, but the ice cream shop was closed, so I asked for the walk to the forest. But we went to the forest and asked them if we can pray. And we prayed, and I told them about the situation. And I felt I'm extremely sorry. This is extremely bad, and I feel very embarrassed. I feel so low that I'm not really deserving to be the child, and I don't deserve to be in this position to even call you my parents. I'm really sorry. And they embraced me. They gave me a big hug, and I wept, and I was crying and crying and crying for a long time. And they said that God loves me, and they told me that He wants you to go through it, no matter what it takes. It will take. I bet it will take a lot, but they really, really believed in me. I'm pretty much simplifying because it was a long talk, and it was a long hug, and it was a long cry as well. But in conclusion, I experienced lots of God's heart and His unconditional love towards me for the very first time fully.
Wow.
And that experience was really, really special because all of the build up to it, all of my hustle, all of my ambitions, all of the goals I had were very much connected to the fact that I was missing my internal connection with God, with my parents, and with myself. And I could see it very clearly that I was quite often choosing escapism. I was choosing different ways of dealing with my brokenness and dealing with my difficulties. But in the end, God was always there. And He told me, thanks for finally opening for me. And thank you for finally giving me a space. Even though it's hard, even though you're gonna be suffering through this situation quite a bit, I'm here and I'm embracing you because you are my child.
Mm.
And I could receive it through Uncle Dave and through my parents. So after the talk with them, I was very much determined that no matter what will happen after that, I don't want to surrender. I don't want to take my life. I don't want to escape, but I want to change my life 100%. And yeah, very next few hours, I listened to Uncle Dave to don't send the money. I contacted Facebook, their administration. They helped me out to back up, to get my account back. They actually, I got very strong legal support as well with that video which was on the porn website. We took it off, and very few hours after that incident, I blocked the contact with these guys, and I made a clear decision that whatever happens, I'll be very open about the situation, even though my friends may see the video, even though I may lose my reputation, I may lose my face, I can feel extremely disappointed in many people's eyes, but God is with me, and I will be good. Whatever will happen, I will go with Him, and I will change my life. I was very straight about it. Obviously, I had lots of fear. I had lots of fear. I was paralyzed for the day. Couldn't really walk. I was shaking. I couldn't eat anything. But my parents were with me. Uncle Dave was with me. And I made my mind to really use this situation to the fullest, to really change my life. That's in a nutshell. Do you have any questions, Andrew, or how do you want to move from this?
Yeah, many questions. But well, I wanted to talk to Uncle Dave real quick because that sounds like it probably would have been fairly late at night. You get a text, you don't know the context, but you just see that some young man wants to talk to you. I'm sure you might have been tired. You have your own stuff going on, but what could you help us get through from your perspective? You get a text, and then what happened after that? What compelled you to say yes? And then how was it hearing this tragic story from this great guy?
Well, Jonasz had been in my group for a while. I knew he was flirting with, with disaster, just being shooting his videos with the people and in the circumstances that he was in, kind of in the lion's den. So yeah, I took the call, and yeah, I felt my heart really went out to him, and I knew that I could try to feel how desperate he was. And I knew that if he paid the ransom, the extortion, they would just ask for more money, and it would never stop. And so I thought the high noon way, and I told him to, Jonasz, you gotta tell your parents, you've got to tell the people that are important to you. Tell your friends what happened to you. They'll understand. They'll have compassion. They'll understand. And then once people know about this, then this will lose its grasp on you. It won't feel like they've got a noose around your neck. And so, anyway, I was just really grateful that that we had that trust, and that Jonasz could reach out, and so it was a make or break situation for him. He could have gone one way, and who knows, something terrible could have happened, or he could have faced it and shared it with people, and that's what he decided to do. I'm so proud of him.
Thank you, Uncle Dave.
And Jonasz, from your perspective, you said you went to a very dark place, and where even the thoughts of just ending it all, committing suicide, were very much starting to be a tempting force. And so reaching out to Uncle Dave, and then his reaction, was that kind of like a release of some of that pressure that you were feeling to find some grand escape, or some, obviously suicide is not an escape, but it feels like an option when you're in a really desperate situation. So was that kind of like, in a sense, a release of really intense pressure?
Yeah, I felt extremely desperate, actually. But I wasn't, I think the quick calculation I had in my mind and in my heart was telling me, taking my life is not an option, because it will create, I just felt like it will create way too much bad things to my family, to people I love and care about, my parents, my siblings. But Uncle Dave was definitely, he anchored me, because, the thoughts I had was coming in and out like crazy. I was really not knowing what I can expect, what I can do, what's my direction now. And he gave me lots of peace, surprisingly. I felt extremely grounded because of his calm voice, because of his listening, acceptance, and the things he offered me, which was some guidance, and I really got love through him.
Can I ask Uncle Dave? We as in High Noon, always recommend that parents lead with grace. This idea of your kid comes to you, they have difficult information to say, and you work your best to say, thank you for telling me, first and foremost. Thank you for coming to me. This is our advice, right? But also with your kids, there is there's another energy that kind of wants to smack them upside the head and be like, what were you thinking, right? And so I want to understand, because I think a lot of parents would like to react a certain way, but they have a habit of starting with freaking out, right? Or they kind of regret their response after it happens. And so when you get a phone call like this and you get some very disturbing information, which from a practical perspective, you said you could kind of see where his lifestyle is leading. And there's kind of like this, of course this happens, I'm sure on some level, right? So just in terms of like, to help any parents out there or any potential mentors who might get such a call, how do you temper your response so that it adjusts for the situation and offer grace primarily instead of guidance or, going straight to like, how could you, this kind of stuff?
Well, the thought never occurred to me to say, I told you so, or something like that. I could sense his real desperation, and that he really got himself into a pickle. And so I just had, so much love and compassion. I just chalked it up to youthful mistake. And he shouldn't be dragged. His life shouldn't be over. And I think that's what occurred to him, that my life is over. My life as I know it is over.
Sure.
I did tell him to delete his account, whatever platform that was on. I don't recall. And about a year later, I got another call, actually, from another second gen who was in the same situation.
Yeah. Okay. So what I understand is that you were kind of empathetically tuned in to where he was at, and it's not the particulars of his situation, but it's his emotional situation that you were much more focused on, and that led you to an empathetic response rather than I've been hearing quite a few young people who are quite upset at their parents because they're like they are maybe not in a situation quite as intense as this, but they're in a pretty desperate situation. They go to their parents give them a lecture, and that just makes everything way worse, right? And so I would just love, some people just don't know how to get to that place, but it sounds like you were much more tuned in to where he was at emotionally, and that kind of led you in terms of your response.
Well, I think it really helped that Jonasz was in a high noon group, and so he had a bunch of brothers who he was used to checking in with slips, or if he had a slip that week, or if he had a challenge that week, and they would do the same, and there's no judgment. So,
Okay.
On that foundation, to advise him to to share with people that are important in his life, who he thinks could offer him grace, then
Okay.
I think he had some confidence that he did have those people in his life.
So building up a little bit more confidence in terms of who he shares it with, so it's not something that he has to deal with alone, but can kind of expand through the people that he trusts.
Yeah, barely put it on.
Jonasz,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I just had a question for you, Jonasz, about so this all happens. You said a grace that you have never experienced in your life through the combination of Uncle Dave and then your parents. But then there's still this fear that you mentioned that still exists because you still don't know practically what's going to happen. What is the outcome?
Right.
How
Right.
much are these guys going to pursue you? And so that was a couple years ago, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And then present date, what was the evolution of you really moving through that and then past that whole situation until you felt like you're on more stable ground and you're back to what you would call normal?
Right. Well, like you said, Andrea, it was an amazing grace I've experienced. I call it an amazing grace in my life because it was a really experience of an amazing grace. You were at the bottom. You felt like a bottom, being on the bottom of hell, and you were able to share something like that to people with whom you are not really expecting maybe the most positive reaction or response from, even though you really value the relationship with them. I love my parents so much, Andrea. I loved them at the time so much as well, but I wasn't really sure how they will respond.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure how Uncle Dave will respond either. But that was a very powerful experience. In the end, even though there was lots of fear, I could find out that these two men were coming from a very organized group from Morocco. And usually, just to give you a little bit of a background information, most of the groups like that are coming from third world countries, either Morocco, Nigeria is big for that. Even though I love, lots of people from Nigeria and Morocco, but those are facts. Lots of people from Ukraine and a few other countries. Anyways, I was very much aware that it can. I don't really know the situation. I cannot control it, but at least I can control whatever I will do with that. And I was pretty much convinced after the conversation with Uncle Dave, my parents, and eventually with myself and God, that this is who I am now. That's an experience I had, and I'm able to share it. Because eventually, if anyways, people will find out through the people who are basically trying to apply some strong extortion on me, sextortion on me. I was pretty much ready to be open from my side and write a testimony or be open about it at the first place. Other things than that, I started being very open with my parents. I was having a checking few times a day with them, sharing how am I feeling. They were asking me where I am at currently with my thoughts, with my feelings. And that was really an opening for me to establish a strong bond with them. At the time, they were approaching me quite a lot about the matching process, and people were contacting us at the time. And I wasn't ready at all for approaching the topic, especially after a situation like that.
Yeah.
But I took them to the prayer room and I told them, I want to work on the relationship with you, on my relationship with God, on my relationship with two parents, and I want to really improve my integrity overall in my life. I want to transform my life. And very next few months were quite amazing, actually. So the other people I shared the situation with was a very small circle of people. I shared with a couple of people I trusted, but at the same time, throughout the following days, even though there was lots of concern, lots of stress, lots of uncertainty, I felt that I am able and I want to be able to testify about this with anybody, because I'm on a mission to change my life. That's what I felt. And that was clearly connected to the fact that I had the support of my parents, I had support of my circle, I had the support of Uncle Dave and many other people who wished me well. There was obviously, especially the first day, I was very concerned about how people will see me from that moment, actually, and how people will react to it. Especially that, I am still very, very close to my community, and I was very close to many BCs, and for quite many, actually, I was an older brother or a brother. And I felt very uncomfortable with completely losing my face. That's what I felt. But in the end, I did have the experience of really declaring that, God, I heard you, I saw your amazing grace, and now I want to work to change my life. So whatever happens, I'm okay with that because I'm rebuilding myself. I think I quitted the job with quite a few travel agencies with whom I was working, with which I was working, and I went to the very last gig, I think, to Turkey for a longer, maybe almost 2 weeks of traveling, and it was maybe 2 months after that. I went there very motivated with very few rules I had and with full support of many people. It was my last gig I had with people like that. Even though I really love those people, many of them, they're extremely, I would say, good individuals, even though the environment was tough. I still have contacts with many of these people, many travelers, many... anyways, I'm not gonna go too much into it, but there was good and the bad. I joined your bootcamp program, I think, Andrew, sometime later on as well. That was very positive influence for me. And after that, I experienced lots of growth through not only being involved in High Noon as a participant, but as a volunteer and as somebody who gives and supports others. And one thing I really I was quite inspired by was that Uncle Dave and many people like you and many people in High Noon, you guys are doing well in your life, and overall your sexual integrity is in a stable place, and because of that you are in the position to give and support others. And it felt extremely special for me. It felt very attractive for me to have something like this in my life. I saw Uncle Dave, I saw you, I saw Sami, I saw many other brothers and sisters, and I was thinking to myself, this is something I would like to have as well. Despite my brokenness, despite my difficulties, I really would like to be in this position to support others, because I got supported and I felt extremely loved. So I would like to pay back for that. So I think that summer I started facilitating, and since that time, I think I facilitated at least 10 different groups in a row. Didn't have a break till then, till this very day, actually. And that was a beautiful experience of really working with people, working on myself, first of all, really taking ownership of my sexual integrity. Also, I didn't have any encounter with PMO after that situation for I think at least good half a year. I was very, very strongly going forward with that. And later on, I was very clear about my goals, and I was just going forward, being able to grow from this experience. Lots of things has happened as well. I had a good experience of traveling for my very own purposes, not necessarily for commercial purposes or business purposes, but I just had an experience of going to the States, and I had a very good experience of hearing some voice from God again. And he told me, Jonasz, you're in a better place now. I'm grateful for your dedication, and I'm grateful that you try to keep me in your life, and you try to establish the relationship. But I feel like, surprisingly, each journey for many people starts with going out of home, or something what symbolizes home, either if we are talking about the comfort zone, or just a home in a metaphorical way, or physically if you're going somewhere out there. If we speak about any figures like Jacob, Moses, or Abraham, or whatever else, whoever else, they have their growing arcs or training arcs. And for me, I felt like I would like to change my environment, experiencing something different as well. And surprisingly, I called Uncle Dave as well, or I messaged him and asked him, oh, Uncle Dave, do you know anybody in the States who would need or search for anybody with my skill sets of photography, filmmaking, media? And he said, yeah.
Well, it's funny you should ask that.
Okay, I'll give it a try. And Uncle Dave was like, yeah, sure, give me a few days, I'll get back to you. And he told me, yeah, I found somebody who can use your skill set very well, and his name is David Wolfenberger. I was like, okay. He said, you're invited for the crab season. And I was, quite
exactly what you're thinking.
Yep, I was quite surprised by that answer. But one thing for sure, I felt that there is lots of positive influences in my life, and I've experienced lots of goodness, lots of love, and lots of forgiveness and grace throughout those last few years. And I'm really grateful for Hainon, because it's like a gym where I could develop my muscles of accountability, grace, integrity, courage, and accountability.
Honesty. You did
Honesty. There we go. Okay. Still working on it. Yet, without that, it will be really difficult. Being really realistic, without Hainon, a situation like that could be very dramatic, actually. It was very dramatic already, but the Hainon gave me lots of tools to take ownership of it, to responsibility for it, to be able to ability to respond to a situation like that. That's what I can say that Hainon gave me, including you, Andrew, and your work and your heart as well.
Appreciate it.
Jonasz, I've got a question for you.
Yes, please.
As I told you, there was another young man who came to me about a year later, and he had the same thing happen to him. they asked for $3,000. They had a video of him. He was requested to masturbate together with this girl, and they got a video of him. They asked for $3,000. He sent the $3,000, and they asked for another $3,000, or they were going to basically end his life. They were going to send the video to all of his contacts, and he felt that he had some aspirations of a career, and he felt if this is out on the internet, then I might as well quit school now, and my career ambitions they're down the toilet. And basically, he felt that his life was over. What would you say to somebody if they were in this situation and they thought their life was over?
That's a good question. So based on what I experienced personally, I would try, first of all, embrace the situation as well. I would try to be what you, Uncle Dave, you were for me at the time, and tell him that it's going to be okay, despite how difficult it looks like, and despite of probably lots of pain and lots of difficulty and lots of shame. And I would tell him that God really loves him. God really loves him, and his value is not based on the performance, even though the performance at the time was probably pretty poor, like in my case. But God really loves him despite of the performance, because his love is unconditional, and he can experience it through his parents or people in the parental figures or positions, or he can experience it through people who really wish best for him, and he can experience it with as well. Even though it's not easy. And for me, I had to really confront myself, because I had the same feeling. I felt like, it's over, game over. You just made such a terrible thing, such a disgusting thing, that, your life as a BC or your life as a, second gen, or you don't really have any space for yourself here. That's what I felt. And again, coming back to the first few minutes of this podcast, I told you that my parents were very active in the church. So I really felt like there was some level of expectations from me. That's what I felt when I was growing up. I felt like very observed by other second gens in Poland or other families, blessed families. So I felt like I had to perform, or I had to be a good boy. I had to be doing well, because that's what is expected from me. But that experience was a very beautiful experience for one reason. I could see that God's love is not based on my performance or how I'm doing at the current moment, but his love is out there and is full and is always there for me, regardless of how I'm doing in terms of my integrity, sexual integrity, or maybe I do other mistakes. I'm always able to access his love and heart. Yeah. And it's a very difficult experience to learn this at the first place. I see this experience as an experience of turning the curse into the blessing. And that's what I would tell this brother. You can turn the curse into the blessing, and you can get still very fulfilling life if you're getting to the basics and foundations of your life and reshaping them based on God and based on the fact that you are valued and you're loved, and it's gonna be okay.
Wow. If I ever get into that situation, I hope I got a brother like you. I don't mind getting in that situation.
That's
how
one
about
thing
not?
we need to emphasize. One thing, because Uncle Dave called me about it a couple of times. And like I said, I was very open to share it, because I was very much ready for this stuff being published, or even now, actually, who knows, maybe I do have my name is on some dark list in the dark book, in the dark place somewhere in Morocco, but I'm very much ready to be open about it anyways. That's first. Sure. Second, Uncle Dave called me, I think I was in Japan at the time, and I was going by myself, having a nice trip. Usually nowadays when I take my trips to any places, when I travel, I travel for myself and for my relationship with God. I do lots of conditions and I pray a lot. So that time I prayed, and I could see that there's lots of value in recording things like that, even though I thought maybe it's not the best time for that because, I'm still a young fellow and maybe I can save from more experience in the future. But at the same time, I hope and I really pray that this can be a testimony for somebody who's currently listening, who can benefit by it, to use it in a productive way, to either prevent themselves in, first of all, being in such a situation, or if they are, hopefully they are not in a situation like that, but if they are, that they can use it as something productive to move forward, because there's always a moment and possibility to move forward. Also, one of our close friends, one of our good brothers, he also took his life, and he messaged me saying that he's escaping from something just relatively recently, second gen brother. And for me, it's a big signal as well that, I hope that God can use this story, even though it's not a pretty story, but I hope God can use it for something good. And I know he will use it for something good.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, that's the only way to turn a defeat into a victory, is to process it, to go through this process of finding yourself, reclaiming yourself, restoring yourself, and becoming stronger than you were before. And then your lesson can be wisdom for you, and then it can be a testimony. And that's why we were doing this podcast, right? Is not for any other reason than to help people either primarily just avoid this situation altogether. If you're starting to seek attention and love from anywhere other than your authentic environment, from your family, from your community, from people that you know and trust, and you're trying to find it, and like you were doing it on that website, right? But doing it in a cheap, convenient way rather than the real thing, you're already on the path down to some dark place where you shouldn't be. So to catch yourself before, but then for those unfortunate people who have already found themselves in a difficult situation, that there is a path back to health, but it involves a lot of conversations and healing and deep prayers and all sorts of stuff. And so we want to make a pathway back. And so is it okay? Jonasz, it's very possible that you've inspired people to share something, and they might want to share with you, since you're the person that opened their heart and pathway. Is it possible for them to reach out to you in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, definitely. One of the things which really keeps me going forward and moving forward is actually the service, and the fact that I can be in position to give. Like I told you, I wanted to be in position to give, but first I needed to fix myself and work on myself to be able to give something. It doesn't mean that the work is finished already. I'm still growing and trying to go forward, but I need to emphasize that I'm very open to help my brothers, my brothers and sisters overall. And like you mentioned, Andrew, it's quite important to emphasize that I was in a very tricky spot, because already I could see lots of red flags. But I think our hiding conversations quite often they need to. We mainly talk about connection and isolation, how to deal with those, right? How to deal how more connection in our life. I think this is what Hainan is really about: is how to get connected with God, with people around us, and with ourselves. And I was using lots of substitutes to feed my strong appetite for deep connection I had. And I had lots of brokenness, which I tried to heal with lots of substitutes. Being popular or being validated, externally validated by people, circumstances, or the things which feel good at the moment, are not the best solution, and they are not the best recipe for a stable and strong life and fulfillment in your life, first of all. So observing yourself, where are we at, and how we can really work on ourselves is a crucial thing. And if I would be a little bit wiser before, I could probably do more steps to prevent things like that. Also, one thing which is very important to mention is that if you are favored by God, and you are clearly are if you're a BC, or if you really try to put relationship with God at the first place, you're gonna be favored by God. But if you're favored by God, you're also favored by the devil. And this is one thing which applies to this story very well. I was extremely blessed with having beautiful family, beautiful parents, beautiful siblings, a beautiful community, but still I did have difficult moments like this. So reading, being aware of your position, and being aware that you want to have a beautiful life and blessed life, and God wants to bless you with that beautiful life, is very crucial here. I know, and we know so many other situations where, as BCs quite often, we face lots of difficulties, and we face lots of traps. So we need to be really careful with seeing those. And if something doesn't go in the best way, we always have some tools to go back, to reach out to people who really wish the best for us, and through whom people, and especially God, can reach us. So I think this is what I wanted to share in the end as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for opening up, getting even emotional. This is a great example of how, our physical circumstances can change on a dime, but our core needs remain the same. God, people, connection, right? So, yeah, thank you for starting this conversation. I really hope that families can talk about this more, right? Prevention starts with communication, with connection. So,
When I first asked Jonasz to if he'd like to be interviewed for a blog or for a podcast, I was thinking we would run his just have no video and run his voice through a filter. I did not expect you to come on, and then when he said I'll come on, I thought we'd place a paper bag over his head and little holes in it. But Jonasz is an extremely brave young man, and I really appreciate that. For anybody who is thinking about, if you put anything on the internet, if you send any photo or video, or if you do something in front of a webcam, it is on the internet, and there's nobody can ever guarantee that it'll be taken down, that it won't come up again when you're older or anytime. And if something like this does happen to you, I think the normal response is isolation, to isolate yourself and shame, and that's the exact opposite of what you should do. You need to connect with people. So please connect. If you can't connect to your parents, reach out to somebody at High Noon. Find somebody that you can trust and you can connect with, and share what happened. Absolutely.
Yeah, great. I think we're going to wrap it up here. This is I think this important conversation that nobody's having, because I think a lot of people don't even know this reality. So thank you for bringing it out into the light, Jonasz. And I really hope that as a High Noon community, we can have more of such conversations and continue this conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Both you guys.
And I just want to once again thank you, and thank you to all of the High Noon staff and all of the people who are really involved in it. This is really a hard work which saves lives, but also which creates lives. So please, if you have, to all of the people listening, or if you know anybody who needs support, we are really utilize the power of accountability and sharing and of the grace, because we all have these superpowers we have to enrich our lives in a very direct way. I would never put my face under the paperback back, or however you call it. I am who I am. I'm God's child, as all of us. We deserve to really build beautiful and meaningful lives. That's why we are here, and that's why I wanted to say yes to a podcast like that. So once again, thank you for listening, and thank you guys for hosting it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Hey, did you know that our team wants to do more events? Well, if you want to bring the High Noon message to your community or group, then let us know and we'll try to work something out. There's a simple application that you can fill out right now at highnoon.org/invite. And one of our team members will get back to you to see what's possible. That's highnoon.org/invite. All right, see you in the next episode.